Finally, my new fence and gate is finally built and ready, so I had no excuse but to put my RFID readers and my access control solution in place. And this is something that we have been waiting for a long time now. I inherited the old fence from the previous owner, and we just waited for the good time and when we have the extra money to build a new fence. But now I have a motorized car gate. And I have one access control and an RFID reader which controls that. So you can open the gate with either a code or by reading an RFID tag. There is also a gate, like a passenger gate, which has this magnetic strike plate. So there is an RFID reader there as well. So you can use that to open that gate if you want to come in on foot. And also I have a third reader which is inside the garden, and that's basically to also control the garage door and some of the also both of the gates from the garden. So if I don't want to go in to get the key fob, I can just walk up to the keypad and dial in a pin code, and that's going to open the doors. And I've also hooked up a couple of other things. So for example, get the pump running if I want to water the garden, that sort of things. And I've already made 2 or 3 videos on how I built this solution, how I integrated this Chinese RFID reader with a Node MCU, how I'm able to read the code, and how I built the Arduino sketch, which is running on the Node MCU, to communicate with this and then send the data over MQTT to my Node-RED server, where I have a complete Node-RED flow which is handling all the access control. So I can define pin codes, basically I can define users which can have different pin codes and RFID codes as well. So when they scan those, I can validate them. I can validate whether they are, active users. They are allowed to, let's say, open the door. If I am in the day of the month where they are allowed to come in, or in the period of the day, like between daytime or specific periods of the day when they are allowed to come in. And if access is granted, then Node-RED is going to send a message back to the ESP to basically pull a relay which is going to operate the door or the magnetic strike plate. And of course, when all this happens, I get a Telegram message that whoever came in, so it actually says the name of the person, and I also get a picture from the IP camera which is above the so it's on the door, on the house. So everything is working. If you are interested in this project, you can find the previous videos where I talk about, well, basically everything, the Node-RED flow, the Arduino sketch, as I said, and I also have a PCB that you can order if you want to replicate the same project. And so it's all documented. Everything is on GitHub and various places where I usually store this stuff. So I think the only addition I want to talk about is how I did the final implementation in Node-RED. I'm not going to talk about the whole basics, because you can find those in the previous videos. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to publish this version of the flow because I think most of the changes, the core functionality was already published in the previous videos. So let's just have a look of what I have done. Now I have 3 RFID devices. So I have an RFID door, entry, and a gate. So the gate is the car gate, the door is the small passenger door, and the entry is the one which is inside the garden. And they are all running the same firmware, and they only were the same Arduino sketch. I just kept changing the IDs and the MQTT topics and a few other things. For example, the motorized gate is going to give an impulse of half a second, just to give an impulse to the motor to either close or open. But the strike plate, I think I left it for 3 seconds, just to make sure that you have time to push the door in. Let me just zoom out. Yeah. So, and what I have done, and that was the original plan as well, is that the gates or the RFID readers that are outside behind next to the 2 gates, they are going to validate users. So I have like user ID, like myself, the gardener, or my in-laws. So they are getting validated whether they have the access and the right day of the week or the correct time within the day. And if they are validated, then the RFID or the node MCU behind the RFID is just going to open either the door or the gate, depending on which RFID reader they use. And this is why I have two RFIDs. And the flow is exactly the same, or the validation is exactly the same. So as you can see, I have the two input nodes, so the gate event and the door event. And I just do the user ID validation. These are exactly the same function blocks. And if it's the, if it's the door, then I send the door pulse 1. So this is the first output is going to pulse. And if it's the gate, then I send it to the gate and then pulse 1. And of course, I do some of the other, sending telegram stuff as well. So actually, it is very simple, nothing complicated in that. And this is why I said, now you can do, well, definitely you duplicate the flow, but at least you don't really have to think about it. This part is handling one of the RFIDs, this one is handling the other RFIDs. So these are doing pretty much the same. I think the only thing I changed is the message text. It says something slightly different. Good. And of course, it sends messages if the user was validated, and then it sends the message to me and my wife. And if somebody used the wrong code, then it just sends an error message to me, so I can know what has happened. And then on the third RFID reader, which is in the garden, so that is validating events and not users, which is almost the same stuff. I made some minor changes, if you remember, because I think it makes more sense for these type of stuff that you do some codes. So for example, this would not validate any RFID tag. Technically, maybe you can carry around a lot of RFID tags, and then one's going to open the gate and the other one is going to open the garage door or the the pump, the irrigation pump. But I just created some codes that it's easier for me to remember. And the only extra stuff I have done here, as you can see, if once the code is accepted, which is the top port, then I check whether the alarm is on. So obviously, if I'm away and if I have the alarm turned on, then even if somebody knows the code, he wouldn't be able to use the code, because it only works if the alarm is turned off. And then here I check, what was the event that got triggered, whether it's the garage door, a pump, a passenger gate, or a car gate. And depending on that, I just send the messages to whatever device is. And most of the input is or most of the sort of control is implemented somewhere else. So I'm just using link nodes to link to that part of the flow. And that also handles all the Telegram messages as well. And if, oh no, actually the Telegram message is here. So even if it was successful or unsuccessful, then I'm also getting some Telegram messages that, it's, somebody used the code, and I can validate that. And on the two RFID readers next to the gates, I still have to find some sort of protective cover for the RFID. They are water resistant or waterproof, so I don't necessarily have to do that, but I think I would like to have something. But if you have noticed in the video, I still kept my old 433 megahertz RF doorbells, and I think I'm going to use those for a time being, but I could technically just mount a small, switch like a bell switch, and I use the input on the ESP to send a message instead of RF that somebody pushed the door, and that could theoretically be more useful, more reliable, because then I'm not relying on a battery operated RF switch. But then, that also means that everything else in the house needs to work, like, the Wi-Fi and the SPs have to be running and some other stuff. So that's something that I want to do. But the whole reason I said that, because if you remember from my previous videos, I also implemented a small NeoPixel light which can, you know, blink in various colors. Like it gives you a long green flash if the code was accepted, or it gives you two shorter red flashes, which I have included in this RFID reader because as you can see, it's in a transparent case. So I just have the LED dangling within the transparent case, so you can see that. But on the sort of the ones that are mounted on the wall, I couldn't find a way how I'm going to, you know, get the LED there in a waterproof way. So there is no, you know, feedback. And this is why you don't see that part of the flow which is doing all the, you know, the light switching and sending the light events, because, well, nothing is going to respond to that anyway. But that could be something that I implement in the future. And again, if you remember previous videos, I implemented, or I created the board, the PCB board. So it has 4 outputs. And at the moment, I actually have a double relay module inside, but I'm only using the first relay at the moment. You see pulse 1, pulse 1. So the idea is that maybe I can use this other relay to turn on some lights locally there as well. But what I noticed in my garage motor is it actually has limit switches which can tell whether the door is open or closed. So I think maybe I'm going to repurpose 2 of the outputs to be used as inputs, and I'm going to hook up the relays so I could tell, you know, if the door has closed or if the door has opened. So maybe I can do some routines saying that, you know, you open the door, but or you close the garage gate, the car gate, but for some reason the car gate did not fully closed. Maybe because somebody, you know, walked in and then the the gate automatically opens. So maybe I can check after, like, you know, half a minute or a minute whether it has been closed, and if it's not closed, then that can send me another extra message, and also like a video feed saying that, okay, something has happened, so maybe the door is still open. So that could be another use case. Maybe I would do it in a couple of months, definitely not now. It needs some extra wiring, which I haven't prepared for at the moment. But that's the flow. It's been running for about 3 weeks, I think, and I had some issues which was not related to the code or any of my implementation. There was something wrong with the garage motor which was tripping one of my breakers. But since that issue is resolved, everything is working fine. And even I was away for vacation, and I could see that the gardener is coming over. I mean, they usually come on Tuesdays. So on Tuesday I got a message that, oh, the gardener has opened the door, and I could see his truck. And then, you know, I also get a second message when they were leaving. So I could actually tell how long they were around, tending the garden. So it works. Going back to the whole project, I'm going to leave links to the previous videos in the video description. And for those videos, again, within the video description, you will find all the links to the sketch, the Arduino sketch, this Node-RED flow, or one of the earlier version of this Node-RED flow, and also what else, the PCB, if you want to order the PCB that I've created as well. So you should have everything if you want to rebuild this project from the ground up. Of course, it needs a lot of learning, but I think it's quite a smart overall solution as well. Hopefully you would agree. But that will be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.